Dear students, I'm very happy to see you on this video lecture on the course code UIT PCIT 603. Course name Human Computer Interaction. And I'm D. Rukmani, Assistant Professor in the Department of Information Technology, working in Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research, going to deliver the video lecture on the topic HCI in the software process. Now we are going to see about the HCI in the software process. Software engineering and the design process for interactive systems. Next, we are going to see about the usability engineering. Third, we are going to see about the iterative design and the prototyping. And the last, we are going to see about the design revisioning. So these are the things we are going to see under the HCI in the software process. First is the software engineering and the design process for interactive systems. The second is the usability engineering. The third one will be the iterative design and the prototyping. The last one is the design revisioning. First, we are going to see about the software lifecycle. So here, the software engineering, which is the discipline for understanding the software design process, are the life cycles. Next, the designing for the usability, which occurs at all the stages of the life cycle, not as a single, which is isolated as the activities. The first software life cycle model is the waterfall. So under the waterfall model, so we are going to see the requirement specification, the architectural design, the detailed design, the coding and the unit testing, integration and the testing, and the last is the operation and the maintenance. So here, the waterfall model, which is a top-down approach. The activities in the life cycle of a waterfall model are the requirement specification, the architectural design, the detailed design, next the verification and the validation. The first we are going to see about the requirement specification. So here the designer and the customer, they try to capture what the system is expected to provide that can be expressed in the natural language or more precise languages, such as the task analyst would provide. Next, we are going to see about the architectural design. So, which is a high-level description of how the system will provide the services, require the factor systems into the major components of the systems, and how they are interrelated. They need to satisfy both the functional and the non-functional requirements. The next, we are going to see about the detailed design under the activities of the life cycle. So, which is a refinement of an architecture components and the interrelations to identify the modules to be implemented separately. And the refinement is governed by the non-functional requirements. Next is the verification and the validation. So, verification means we are going to design the product right. Validation means designing the right product. So in the real world, requirements and the constraints, there will be a formality gap between the waterfall and the validation and verification. The formality gap, which is the validation, which will always rely to some extent on the subjective means of proof. So which will always relate to some extent on subjective means of proof. The next is the management of the contractual issues. So here the design is in commercial and the legal context. The next we are going to see about the usability engineering. So here the ultimate test of usability is which are based on the measurement of the user experience. So usability engineering, which demands that specific usability measures to be made explicit as their requirements. The usability specifications. So here we'll be having a usability attribute or the principle, the measuring concepts, the measuring methods, low level, worst case, planned level, best case. And the problems under the usability engineering are the usability specification, which requires the level of detail that may not be given. Next, the possible early in design satisfying usability specification. Here, which does not necessarily satisfy the usabilities. So these are the problems which comes under the usability engineering. Next, here we are going to see about the usability specification for an VCR. So the attributes for the usability specification of the VCR are the measuring concept, measuring method, now level, worst case, planned level, best case. For the measuring concept, the backward recoverabilities are here we will be undoing an enormous programming sequence. For measuring the method, we'll be having a number of explicit user actions to undo the current program. Now level, no current product allows such as AND. Worst case, as many actions as it takes to program a mistake. Planned level, a maximum of 2 explicit user actions. Best case, one explicit cancel action is used. So these are the attributes and the backward recoverability that comes under the usability specifications for an VCR. The next will be the ISO usability standard 9241. So here the ISO usability which adopts the traditional usability categories. So which will adopt the traditional usability categories. They are effectiveness, efficiency, and the satisfaction. So effectiveness in the sense, so it will question, can you achieve what you want to? So under the efficiency, it will again question what you do it without wasting the efforts. So under satisfaction, it will question, do you enjoy the process? So these are the traditional usability categories that comes under the ISO usability standard 9241, which is an effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. Next, we are going to see about the third step under the HCI in the software process, which is an iterative design and the prototype. So here, the iterative design, which will overcome the inherent problems of incomplete requirements. So here, the prototypes which we are using are, it will stimulate or animate some features of the intended systems. Here we'll be having a different types of prototypes. They are throwaway, incremental, and evolutionary. So under this, we'll be having some of the management issues. They are time, planning, non-functional features, contracts. So these are the management issues that comes under the iterative design and prototyping. So here, which will overcome the inherent problems of the incomplete requirements. And we'll be having a prototype. It will stimulate or animate some features of the intended systems. Here we'll be having a different types of prototypes. They are throwaway, incremental, and evolution. So next we'll be having a management issues. They are time, planning, non-functional features, and the class will be seeing about the contracts. Next, we are going to see about the techniques for the prototyping. So here, the techniques we are using under the prototyping are the story boards. So under the story boards, we need not be a computer-based. It can be only animated. So we need not be based on the computers. So the limited functionality stimulations are the some part of the system functionalities provided only by the designers. The tools like HyperCard are common for these. Here we will be using the wizard of OZ technique under the story boards. Next, warning about the iterative design. So here the design inertia, which is an early bad decision which stays bad. Next, we'll be diagnosing the real usability problems in the prototypes. So these are the warnings about the iterative designs. The next will be the design rationally. So design rationally is an information that will explain why a computer system is the way it is. So it will explain that why a computer system is the way it is. So the benefits of design rationally are the communication throughout the life cycle, the reuse of the design knowledge across the products, enforces the design discipline, which presents the arguments for design trade-offs, and it organizes the potentially large design space, and at last it will be capturing the contextual information. So these are the benefits which comes under the design rationally. The first one will be the communication throughout the life cycle, design, reuse of design knowledge across the products, which enforce the design discipline, which presents the arguments for the design trade-off, which organizes potentially large space design space, and at last it will be capturing the contextual informations. Next, the types of design rationally. So we'll be having two types. The first one is the process oriented, and the second one is the structure oriented. So under the process oriented, it preserves the order of deliberation and the deliberation and the decision making. So here the process oriented, which preserves the order of deliberation and the design making. So under the structure oriented, which emphasizes the post-hoc structuring of considered design activities. So we'll be having two examples under the design rationally are IDIS, which is an issue-based information systems, and the design space analysis. So these are the two examples that comes under the design rationally. Moving on to the issue-based information system, which is an IDIS. So which is basis for much of design rationally research. So IDIS, this is a process oriented. The main elements which comes under IDIS are the issues, positions, arguments. So issues in the sense, it's a hierarchical structure with the one root issues. The position means we'll be having a potential resolution of an issue. The argument here will be modify the relationship between the positions and the issues. So GIDIS, which is a graphical version of IDIS. So GIDIS, it is a graphical version. Next, this is a structure of GIDS. So here we'll be having an issue. That issue which mainly focuses on the positions and the sub-issues. First, we'll be having an argument, the argument which supports the positions, and the position which responds to the issues value. Next, the argument will object to the position, and again it will respond to the issues. Next, we'll be having some of the sub-issues. Those sub-issues will generalize the issues, will question the issues, and also the sub-issue will specializes the issues. So this is a structure of graphical issue-based information system. The next is the design rationally. So it's an example of a design rationally. This is a design space analysis. So it comes under the structure oriented. So already we have seen IDIS, which comes under the process oriented of design rationally, whereas the design space analysis, which comes under the structure oriented of the design rationally. Here we are going to study about QOC, which is a question, option, criteria, which is here you'll be having a QOC has a hierarchical structures. So we'll be having the questions and the sub-questions. The question and the sub-questions will represent the major issues of the design, whereas the option, it will provide an alternative solutions to the questions. Criteria, it means to access the options in order to make to a choice. Here we will be studying about DRL, which is similar to the QOC, which is a question option criteria, which is a larger language and more formal semantics. QOC notation. See, it's a QOC means it's a question option criteria. So we'll be having a question. For the question, we'll be having three options. Those three options will be having a criterion matches to several of these. So we'll be having a consequent questions also. So this is a hierarchical structure of QOC, which is a question option criteria. Next, So we are going to see about the psychological design rationally. So the psychological design rationally, so which is used to support the task artifact cycle in which the user tasks are affected by the systems they use. It main aims to make the explicit consequences of the design for the users. Here, the designers will identify the task systems with support. The scenarios are suggested to test the task. Here, the users are observed on the systems. The psychological claims of the systems, which is made explicit. The negative aspects of the designs that can be used to improve the next iterations of the design. So these are the steps that comes under the psychological design rationally. Next, we are going to see about the design rules. So designing for the maximum usability. So its main goal, which is the interaction design. So here we'll be having a principle of usabilities, standards and the guidelines, and at last the design patterns. The principle and the usability, which mainly focuses on the general understandings, whereas the standard and the guidance, which focus on the directions for the design. The design pattern, which will capture and reuse the design knowledge. Next, we are going to see about the types of design rules. So under the types of design rules, we'll be having the principles, the standards, and the guidelines. So under principle, which has the abstract design rules, it has the low authority, and it has the high generality. So under the standards, we'll be having a specific design rules, and we'll be having a high authority and a limited applications. So under guidelines, we'll be having a low authority, more general operations. So this is a diagrammatic representation of increasing authority versus increasing generality. So the lower case, which mainly focuses on the standards, the upper case, which mainly focus on the guidelines. Next, principles to support the usability. So the principles to support the usabilities are learnability, flexibility, and the robustness. So learnability means which is the ease with which the new users can begin the effective interaction and they will achieve the maximal performance. The flexibility in the sense, here we'll be having the multiplicity of the ways the user and the system exchange the information. Robustness, we'll be having the level of support provided the user in determining a successful achievement and assessment of the goal character behavior. We are going to see in detail about each of these principles that support the usability. Next, we are going to see the principles of learnability. So under the principles of learnability, we are having predictability, synthesizability, similarity, generalizability, consistencies. The first we are going to see about predictability. So here we will be determining the effect of future actions, which is based on the fast interaction histories. Next is the operation visibilities. The next principle of learnability is the synthesizability. So here we'll be accessing the effect of the past actions. Next, we'll be having an immediate versus eventual honesty. The next principles of learnability is the familiarity. So we are going to identify how clear the knowledge appears to the new system. Next, the guessability and the affordance. Next, the fourth principle of learnability is the generalizability. Here we'll be extending the specific interaction knowledge to new situations. The last one, which is the consistency, the likeness in the input-output behavior arising from the similar situations are the task objectives. The next is the principles of flexibility. So under the principles of flexibility, we'll be having a dialogue initiative, multi-threading, task migratability, substitutability, and the customizability. So these are the principles which comes under the flexibility. The first one is the dialogue initiative. So here we'll be having the freedom from the system imposed constraints on the input dynamics. Here we'll be having the system versus the user pre-entities. Next is the multi-threading. So which is the ability of a system to support the user interaction for more than one task at a time. Here we'll be having a concurrent versus interweaving or multimodality. The third principle is the task migratability. So here we'll be passing the responsibility for the task executions between the user and the system. The fourth principle of flexibility is the substitutability. So here we'll be allowing the equivalent values of input and the output to be substituted for each other. The representation multiplicity or the equal opportunities. The last principle of flexibility is the customizability. So here we will be having the modifiability of the user interface by the users or the systems. So by the user, this is the adaptability. By the system, which is the adaptivity. So these are the 5 principles which comes under the flexibility. Next, we are going to see about the principles of robustness. So under the principles of robustness, we'll be having responsiveness, task conformance, observability, recoverability. So these are the 4 principles which comes under the robustness. The first one is the responsiveness. So here we'll be identifying how the user perceives the rate of communications with the systems. Next, we'll be identifying the stability. The task conformance means here we'll be identifying the degree to which the system services support all of the user tasks, and we will be having the task completeness and the task adequacies. The next is the observability. Here it is the ability of a user to evaluate the internal state of a system from its receivable representations. So here we'll be using the browserability, defaults, reachability, persistence, operation visibilities. So these which comes under the principles of robustness under the observability. Next, we are going to see about the recoverability. So which is the ability of a user to take the corrective actions once an error has been recognized. So which is a reachability. So here we will be forwarding or backwarding the recovery or commensurity efforts. So these are the steps which comes under the recoverability. Next, we are going to see about how we are going to use those design tools. So under the design tools, here we will be suggest how to increase the usability, and it differs in generality and the authority. So here it's a diagram representations for the design tools. So here we'll be having increasing authority versus the increasing generality. So under the lower, we'll be having the standards, and the upper stage we'll be having the guidelines. Standards. So here we are going to set by the national or the international bodies to ensure the compliances by the large community of the designer standards, which requires the sound underlying the theory and slowly charging the technologies. So here we'll be having a hardware standard that is more common than the software high authority and the low level of detail. So it is having a ISO 9241, which defines the usabilities as the effectiveness, the efficiency, and the satisfaction with which the users accomplish the task. Next is the guidelines. So more suggestive and gentle. So here we are having many textbooks and reports that's full of guidelines. Next, we'll be having an abstract guideline, that is a principle which is applicable during the early life cycle activities. Next, we'll be having a detailed guideline, that is refers to as the style guides, which is applicable during the later life cycle activities. The last one under the guidelines is the understanding justifications for the guidelines aids in resolving the conflicts. Next, we are going to see the golden rules and the heuristics. So under the golden rules, here we are using a board brush, that is a design tool, and we'll be using a useful checklist for the design, good design. So here we'll be using a useful checklist for good design. Next, for a better design, we are using these than using nothing. So different collections are under the golden rules and heuristics. The first one is the Nelson's 10 heuristics, Striderman's 8 golden rules. The last is the Norman 7 principle. Now we are going to see in detail about the Norman 7 principles and Schneiderman's 8 golden rules. First, we are going to see about the Schneiderman's 8 golden rules. The 8 rules are: first, it will strive for consistencies. Next, it will enable the frequent users to use the shortcuts. It offers the informative feedback. It designs the dialogues to yield the closures. The fifth rule, it offers the error prevention and simple error handlings. Sixth one, it will permit easy reversal of actions. The seventh, it will support the internal locus of control. The last, it will reduce the short-term memory. So these are the 8 rules that comes under the Schneiderman 8 golden rules. The first, it will strive for consistencies. It will enable the frequent users to use the shortcuts, offer informative feedback, design the dialogues to yield the closure. It offers the error prevention and simple error handlings. It will permit the easy reversal of actions. It supports the internal locus of control. It reduces the short-term memory load. Next, we are going to see in detail about the Norman 7 principles. So here, the Norman 7 principles are: first, it uses both the language in the world and the knowledge in the hit. It uses both knowledge in the world and knowledge in the hit. Second, it simplifies the structure of the task. Third, make things visible. That it bridges the gulf of execution and the evaluations. Get the mappings right. The fifth rule, it will exploit the power of constraints, both natural and artificial. So it designs mainly for errors. When all else fails, it is standardized. So these are the 7 principles that comes under the Norman 7 principles. First, we will be using both the knowledge in the world and knowledge in the hit. Next, it will be simplify the structure of the task. Third, we make the things visible that bridges the gulf of execution and the evaluation. Fourth, get the mapping right. So it will exploit the power of constraints, both natural and the artificial. It designs for the errors. The seventh, when all else fails, it will be standardized. Next, we are going to see about the HCI design patterns. An approach to reusing the knowledge about successful design solutions, which is a HCI design process. So it is an approach to reusing the knowledge about the successful design solutions. So it is originated in the architecture, that is an Alexa. A pattern is an invariant solution to a recurrent problem within a specific context. So pattern means it is an invariant solution to a recurrent problem within a specific context. The examples under the patterns are the architecture, that is the light on two sides of every room. So the light on two sides of every room, that is an architecture. Next, go back to the safe base, that is an HCI. So the patterns does not exist in isolation, but are linked to the other patterns in the languages, which enable the complete design to be generated. So these are the HCI design patterns. The next one, the HCI design pattern. So here we are going to see about the characteristics of the patterns. So these are the characteristics. First, it will capture the design particles, not the theories. So it will capture only the design practice, not the theories. It will capture the essential common properties of the good examples of the design. It will represent the design knowledge at the varying levels as socio, organizational, conceptual, and the detail. Next, it will embody the values and it can express what is humanity in interface design. Also, it is an intuitive and readable and can therefore be used for communication between all the stakeholders. So it's a pattern language that should be generative and assist in the development of the complete designs. So these are the 6 characteristics that comes under the HCI design patterns. Thank you.